Okay, yeah, here we are. So Fabio, I was introducing you. He's an internationally expert and renowned yoga teacher, has been teaching yoga for more than 30 years. And he is a very close student of Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche, from whom he got the transmission for the Yantra Yoga. With not much further ado, I would like to explain. So we are going to have around 45 minutes of conversation with Fabio. And then at the end, there will be like the last 15 minutes for people to ask questions if you want to learn more, etc., etc. So Fabio, pleasure to have you. And thank you very much for accepting to have this conversation with us, with Landguet Ried, and also with Landguet Ried audience who are obviously interested in learning more about your art, about Yantra Yoga. And I think the first question would be, of course, we are all in the West now familiarized with yoga, but maybe not so much familiarized with Yantra Yoga, with the tradition of Yantra Yoga, which stems from the Tibetan tradition. So maybe you would be so kind as to tell us more about this tradition.
Sure, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Begoña, for organizing this, and Landguet Ried for hosting the courses. Well, Yantra Yoga is supposed to be a teaching that is very ancient. I say supposed to be because there is the oral tradition, there is the tradition that is transmitted through practitioner to teacher to practitioner, practitioner to teacher, and so on and so on and so on. And then there is the studies of the expert, the academics, they find dates and histories and all the different aspects, how the tradition mingle together and then come out a new tradition, or that actually to me is quite kind of normal, because we have different tradition and different way of maybe also applying the principle of yoga. But especially in the ancient times, when practitioners will meet together, for example, around the Mount Kailash, the very, very holy place for all the religions, all the main religions, all traditions are the Kailash, Mount Kailash, and the Lake Manosarva. That I had the very great fortune to be there. Is a place that is like almost not of this earth. It seems something so special. And for sure, they will get together, they will practice together, they will share their knowledge. And so things slowly, let's say, evolve. The text that is based the Yantra Yoga on is the text by the Master Vairochana. So Master Vairochana lived around the 8th century. And his text is attributed to him. So it means that this text should be about of that time. And we know that the text of Hatha Yoga that are much later. So these, I leave this to the academics to discuss all these aspects about this. But, and the other thing that is interesting is that the name of the text of Vairochana is Nidakajor. That means the union of sun and moon. And if you translate in Sanskrit, it's Hatha Yoga. And so there are many things about the origin of Yantra Yoga that would be very, very interesting to deepen even more if it was possible. The system of Yantra Yoga is 108 movements. There are 3 preliminaries, body trainings. Sometimes we define in this way. There is 5 movements of warming up. There is 8 movements to purify the prana. There is 5 movements to open and coordinate the function of the channels. And then there is 5 groups of yantras. Every group has 5 yantras. And then every group is related to a pranayama. And finally, there is one session, it's called the Vajra wave, that again should be to purify, eventually recorrect some possible mistake done during the practice, so that we can be sure that at the end of the session, there is not something that went, let's say, the way that was not supposed to go. And the characteristics of Yantra Yoga are many. First of all is movement. The movement is ruled by rhythm. And the central aspect is not the posture of the movement itself, but is the breathing. And the movement itself is a kind of servant to the breathing in order to shape the form of the body in a way that would help shaping the breath. And especially in Yantra Yoga, what is applied is the holding of the breath. There is 5 kinds of holdings. So the central aspect of Yantra are the holdings in reality. For example, what Begoña was mentioning before, that we did the course about last time, was the 8th movement for purifying the prana and coordinate the energy. And they are named by the hold and by the phase of the breath. We know that holding the breath is very powerful, and also is interdependent with how we inhale and how we exhale, is all a coordinated thing. And so in Yantra Yoga, the central phase is the hold. There is 4 holding after inhaling: open hold, directed hold, closed hold, and contracted hold. And then there is a holding after exhaling. All these, all the yantras, all is shaped around this. And the only moment that in the practice of yantra we stay is when we hold. When we inhale or exhale, the body is always moving. And the principle would be to have a total synergy between the movement of the body, the breathing in the rhythm. So the rhythm rules. It's not rhythm only in, for example, the second of the pranayamas is called the rhythmic breathing, where is training the breath and the holding of the breath. And so that there is rhythms that are growing in order to increase the capacity of the hold. But in the 8 movements, the basic rhythm is 2 counts. And 2 counts should be based on the heartbeat of a person that is healthy and is relaxed. So more or less something above 1 second. So in the yantras, the basic rhythm is 4. And also how we start the rhythmic breathing, we start with 4. And if 4 counts of breath is more or less 5 seconds, 5 seconds and a half, 6 seconds. So we go to more or less, you know, this kind of rule, this kind of way of coordinating with the rhythm, all the function of the breathing. Now there are so many studies that prove how important it is, this, so many methods based on this, even in phones and in watches and everywhere you find function to breathe with the rhythm. Mm-hmm. So yantra is intrinsic in the practice of yantra. And of course, in also in Hatha Yoga, there is external kumbhaka, internal kumbhaka, the retention of the breath. Sometimes is emphasized the external retention, sometimes is emphasized the internal retention. And when we practice the rhythmic breathing, we practice both of these aspects. In the yantra themselves, there is only one of the 5 holdings that we practice. And they are basically in order, the way we start holding, the way we are directing, the way we are closing, and the way we are blocking the air below the navel. That is the road of the practice of yantra. Because in reality, and this is the aspect that is not open to be taught, because for this, then we would need to receive direct a transmission from a teacher, an authorized teacher that really the deep knowledge of the real condition of our nature. And because yantra in the Tibetan tradition is basically a trulkhor, this kind of movement, which purpose is really to prepare for doing practices that apply more deep aspect of meditation, connected more with the function of the prana, the subtle function of the prana, the channels and the chakra and so on. That would be the aspect of the tsalung. And this is the aspect that Yantra Yoga is already applying and is preparing for. So this is more or less a very, 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 very quick overview about Yantra Yoga. And Vairochana actually it came to us through the Tibetan tradition and the Tibetan transmission through our teacher Chögyal Namkhai Norbu. But Vairochana learned it from a Mahasiddha from Nepal called Hunkara. Hunkara learned it from Guru Rinpoche, one of the most famous teacher of the Tibetan Buddhism that came from Odhyana. So is a Tibetan tradition because it was developed and maintained in Tibet, but its origin were not necessarily autochthonous from Tibet. But because it came to us through the Tibetan tradition and to the Tibetan transmission, then we consider that we call it a Tibetan yoga of breath and movement. Now, what we teach openly is the basic part, the basic aspect, that is the three body training, as I said, the Dzogchen that are warm-ups, the Lung Sang that are the 8 movement to purify the prana, and the Tsandul that is controlling, harmonizing the function of the channels. And then there is the yantras, because there are 25 yantras, 5 groups of 5 yantras every group. And every group focuses in itself mostly on some of the holdings. And then every yantra is 2 variations. So altogether there are 75 yantras. That is the body of Yantra Yoga, 75 yantras divided in 5 groups. And the variations sometimes are a little more difficult in order to perform, let's say, the physical aspect. Sometimes not necessarily, but what happens when we practice the variations is that we increase the length of the hold. So what is really to develop and to stabilize and develop is the capacity of the hold. Again, is not so much in Yantra Yoga if somebody is super flexible, but is disregarding or not applying correctly the aspect of the breath and the holding, then that is not Yantra Yoga. Doesn't matter how fantastic can be the body bending in whichever way, that is not the practice of Yantra. Because all this bending and things is in function of how we direct our breath to be held in that particular way. That is a function of Yantra. That's where is the core, the heart of the practice of Yantra Yoga. So And if somebody, for example, finds some of the yantra difficult and want to do a session of yantra yoga, then if this person is so lucky to be able to learn at least all the 25 yantras, the basic yantras, can organize his or her own set of practice, routine, let's call it, getting yantras from any group. Doesn't matter, don't have to respect the group. You can mix it, but for a session of yantra, there should always be the 5 holdings. Doesn't matter if they come from here or from there, if one needs, because one more easy here, one more easy there, then can create his or her own set of practice, but respecting the fact that all the 5 holdings should be there. So this is more or less a very quick explanation of what it is, the Yantra Yoga Vairochana. Because trulkhor, in the Tibetan tradition, there are many, not only the Yantra Yoga Vairochana. There are many from different school and different tradition and linked to different teachers and traditions. Mm. And so this is one, but is very, very articulated, are 108 movements. So that is pretty special.
Mm. I have a question I would like to ask you.
Yes.
Let's see. So a question I had, I heard in one of the interviews you gave last year, not long ago, that you were always amazed at how, you know, there are yoga teachers that come to your trainers, to your trainings, and they actually are not aware of how important the breath is. And that they come to realize when they come to your trainings, like how breathing is the core, as essential, that the breathing is at the core and at the essence of the movement. Can you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, when I said I was amazed, because I taught for 10 years in Kripalu in United States. It's a very big yoga center. And sometimes a yoga teacher, we are coming to the courses I was giving, never very many. For some reason, they were preferring these things that they do with a little mic. Now move this, now move that, now move this, and they prefer that. What can I do? But sometimes there were some yoga teachers. And what amazed me, that they were amazed that yantra, there was so central the aspect of the breath and so articulated. Because also at the end, in Kripalu, they give you a kind of form people have to feel. How do you like stay here? How do you like the food? How do you like the course? How do you like the teacher? What you like of the course? What you think that would like more, like this, like that. And many, many people, they say, the breath, we want more breathing, we want more breathing. And I was thinking, but yoga is breathing from the very beginning, because it's through breathing that we can control, let's say, the mind. Now, science is proving that breath is kind of remote control of the mind, and the mind is powerful. The mind depends on the energy, depends on the breath, because the breath is connected to the level of our energy. In Yantra Yoga, we say body, voice, and mind. Voice means breath. You know, as a total interdependence, only that generally the mind is agitated. Agitated mind creates also tension in the breath, but also tension in the body. And tension in the body modifies the posture. It creates a posture that won't allow a smooth and fluid breathing how should be in Yantra Yoga, because the first thing we learn in Yantra is the fluid breathing. That the characteristic should be direct. It means smooth, not fragmented or interrupted. Should start from below. The focal point is set 4 fingers below the navel. It means we have to have let's call it like this, a nice diaphragmatic breath, and then should come up, but without closing the glottis, and from the nostrils always. And the exhalation is on reverse, starting from the top and going down. That is the breath of Yantra Yoga that is applied in anything. It's called the fluid breathing. And as, for example, when I taught for many years, I saw person that you tell them, we have to breathe like this, and is alien. If somebody doesn't have any experience of that, it's strange. So that's why probably this person were so amazed, because Yantra Yoga is training through the head movements. If you do it and do it and do it, is training the body to kind of reprogram the brain and the path, neuronal path to create a different memory in the body. And also that's why, for example, I ended up trying to find ways to have people immediately have kind of experience of a different breath. That's why I have, let's say, created a system, Respira method, for that. Basically to train people on the fluid breathing. I know that in yoga, let's say, there are different points of view on that. More generally, I understand the in-breath is starting from below, generally, but there are some schools in South India, I think I have a book of them that they teach to inhale from the top down instead of bottom up. And the exhalation, generally, I understand, is mostly, again, from the bottom up. But in Yantra, from the top to bottom. That is really a characteristic. And yes, so they were amazed about that. And since the prana, the breath, and the mind are so connected, and the ultimate goal of yoga is not just to have a flexible body, that is an instrument. And then I was amazed that the yoga teacher didn't really have this totally ingrained also in the way they teach, that the breath is the bridge between the body and the mind, and is so important. That's why I was amazed. And originally, in the very, very ancient times, we know that yoga was basically something to be able to sit and do meditation of certain kind. All the asanas and all these kind of things are supposedly originating much, 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 much later. And then the level we are today is pretty modern. Now, many consider Krishnamacharya like the father of the modern yoga. And so, and all the offspring and things that manifest. And now, with what happens with the COVID and everything, now, whoosh, breath has exploded. And everything now is thirsty about something about the breathing. And so now many things are manifesting in this way. Luckily, in a way, because it's very important.
And so then can you then explain what role does the body play, or do the posture play in Yantra Yoga? And also I'm interested to know why 8 movements.
Okay, well, the posture is the way, because our body, the breath and the body and the mind are interconnected. They are working always in synergy. They are interdependent. Sometimes there can be a bad chain reaction, bad connection, that a bad breath create a bad breath, a breath that is not really efficient and harmonious. Is creating a bad posture that in turn creates bad breathing, because if people are like this, they can't breathe well. If you are like this and breathe only in the chest, you're activating the sympathetic nervous system. You are stressed, you become more tense, more tension, less breath, and this and the mind, and then the body, everything becomes tense and stiff. But long breath, many studies, for example, now they're proving, has the same effect of stretching the muscles, for example. Mm-hmm. And the shape, Yantra Yoga is shaping the way that the breath is moving in order to achieve a particular condition of the breath that is held. In that way, the body is used to shape the breath, and the breath is shaped to coordinate and purify the energy, and so allow the mind to be more relaxed, more clear. This is really because, again, when we breathe, the air goes in the lungs. It's not that goes somewhere else in reality, no? Mm-hmm. And but how the body is shaped determine, for example, in Tibetan medicine, and of course is connected also to Ayurveda, only is maybe presented slightly differently. There are 5 different subtle functions of the prana, and they have their seat is in different parts of the body. And so the way that the body, we feel the body moving, the breath moving in our body is influenced the subtle energy of the prana. And this is much more powerful than any simple position of the body where, yeah, you are influences the muscle and things like this, like that. But the thing that is really deep is the function of the prana that is already coordinated by a breath, a normal, fluid, complete, harmonious breath is super powerful, really, really it is. And is also so interconnected with the posture that if we breathe really in the proper way, the famous alignment that is a kind of the holy grail in some system of yoga and in general, the body aligns by itself. So in reality, my understanding of the purpose of yoga is not to become a different me, different you, different something, but is to find what is the more natural condition of who we are. So simply being free from tension, from conditioning, and then somehow not only the body aligns, but the energy aligns and the mind aligns. So in this sense, that is really, for me, the goal of yoga, finding this condition that is naturally, spontaneously our ideal condition as human being in this earth. And maybe also in this universe. We don't really know what is the condition we are in reality. So, but this needs work. That is the thing. But if we work with this in mind, that's why recently I'm really saying seriously, after teaching for actually it's more than 40 years, I really do believe that the most important things when we practice yoga, because is the key, is being present and aware in what we do. And I think that it's always been like this. It's always been like this. Whatever iteration of yoga we want to manifest, whatever we want to think, but the real point of the practice of yoga for me is always been that, to be able to be present and aware. And if we can train that, the breath, as for example, is very much used in mindfulness. In reality, yoga is a kind of mindfulness in motion, you know. If we are able to develop, when we practice this kind of understanding of the interdependence of body, energy, mind, and these, then and because the yantra already is in movement, then we should actually be able to kind of transfer this attitude, this knowledge, this capacity in our daily life. And that's where really it is important, the practice of yoga and the awareness of the breath, and that breath is incorrectly, and so on and so on and so on, because that really can change the quality of our life, really.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Fabio. I'm also interested in knowing, I mean, of course, you met Dzogchen teacher Namkhai Norbu, so in the 70s, and I think that certainly influenced your practice of yoga. You were already practicing yoga before, but then with your meeting of Rinpoche, what I'm interested in knowing, did you bring any adaptation to the original tradition of Yantra Yoga? Was it influenced by your previous experience of yoga, or has it been kept as it is by Lineage?
No, Rinpoche was always saying that because I am, but was because Rinpoche passed away, one of the two trainer of teachers that he authorized to teach. And specifically, he tasked us with the task of trying to not let things change, because it's inevitable. Because whatever it is that we learn, after we have to apply in our own body, energy, and mind, and we are all different. So even if externally we try to do the same asana or the same yantra, we are doing everyone a different asanas of yantra. The camel, for example, whatever it is, camel is there also in Yantra Yoga. For example, because that's the only way we can really practice is inside our own condition. That is different, is actually different also from day to day, you know. So, but how the practice is applied and the principle of the practice, we are trying to keep it as close as possible to how we have been taught, not to change something. What I try to do eventually, because when I was in India, I studied in traditional the Satyananda. My teacher was not explaining very much to me. Was doing, now do. And Rinpoche did a little bit the same in the beginning. No, explaining so much. Go. But there is the text, there is this thing, and then we are doing situation, or he was checking, then we work on the book for years to translate the book and seeing everything very precise. So that was the school also. And so that's why I try to, with my experience, not to modify, to try to find ways to guide people to understand what are the fundamental aspects. For example, we have limitation of the body. Everybody has some kind of limitation. So we are bound when we try to apply something where the movement and the shape of the body is so important to determine how the holding is happening, because they're supposed to work the holding in this way on this specific aspect of the subtle energy of prana. And then the aspect of the tendons, on the muscles, on the joint, on the organs, also that is part. In fact, in the text of Yantra, there is all this benefit and related to every kind of movement. But when we do this, inevitably, even one day we have a little pain here or a little pain there, we tend to do some modification. The point is that if there is to apply some small modifications, because big modification will change too much, that this is done knowing, understanding how to do it without changing the effect that has on the breathing and on the holding. For example, in this, told you, this method Respira that I'm trying to use to understand the fluid breathing, I have exercises that everybody knows, exercise everybody does, but I do it with the focus on understanding the interdependence between the position and the breathing. And here you can see, but you can see also in the asana, some asanas help concentrating more the breath in the chest, some asanas somewhere else, you know. And there you see that sometimes keeping the heels together or opening the heels you feel the expansion of the breath in the chest, and then you feel the expansion of the breath in the belly. From the point of view of yantra, it's not something, well, because if the held air should be controlled below the navel and you are breathing in the chest, it's not going to happen. And maybe it's going to happen that you create pressure in the chest. And that is not what is supposed to happen, because it's not having the function that it's supposed to have. So what I really try is to raise the awareness of this aspect. No, the body is important, but the breathing is more important in Yantra Yoga. The breathing is the core of the practice of Yantra.
So maybe one last question about actually the connection of Yantra Yoga to a spiritual practice. It seems, you know, it comes from an original lineage, and is it to be practiced only with an aim for spiritual development, or it has other benefits and other intentions that can also be incorporated in the practice?
Well, you know, one example that is given is that, in what I was saying, if our energy is not coordinated and our mind is agitated, it's very difficult to try to apply also some meditations. You sit down and then start moving here and moving there, and the mind is racing, like the example that is always giving, like a monkey, you know, the monkey mind. And then what you do is complicated. So basically, Yantra Yoga is to coordinate our energy. That is good for your health and everything, but especially to calm the mind, to have a mind that is more calm and clear. And some energy that is good to live with is always nice. And but that basically is this, but I think the yoga was always like this. This therapeutic aspect of yoga in reality is something, I understand something quite new in a sense. Is more, the aspect is to bring this kind of health, this kind of well-being, that is really the well-being of being able to be in a condition that then, when you are in this condition, more relaxed, with the mind more clear, and you have received some teaching, spiritual teaching, then it's easier to apply. But if you are not interested in that, the simple fact of being able to coordinate the energy and make the body a little more healthy, definitely it can be very useful. When some people were writing to Rinpoche with different kind of problem, Rinpoche was always saying, try to relax, try to be present, and try to be present and aware. And if there is a problem with energy, cannot easy to overcome, try to do some, at least the 8 movements of Yantra Yoga, because it's very important to coordinate and purify our energy. And this helps when we can coordinate the breath. And now science is absolutely proving the same thing in many different ways.
Thank you, Fabio. So as I was saying at the beginning, we are holding a workshop, a five-day workshop at Landguet Ried in August. It's from 26th to the 31st of August. And then in this workshop, Fabio will be joined for a conference by Dr. Punsok Wangmo, who is a Tibetan doctor. So she will also be able to explain the benefits of this practice from a Tibetan medical perspective. And I wanted to ask Fabio, so what can participants to this workshop in August can expect?
To enjoy what we are doing together, because doing the Yantra and the head movement is very nice. Everybody, when they do the movement, they say, oh, wow, that is really nice. And also we do in the beginning, there is a breath, it's called eliminating 9 times the impure prana or stale prana. And then there is the rhythmic breathing that now, as I told you, is very, very, very diffuse in many different levels and a way of practicing. That is what we practice. This eventually the second part, that is would be to train people to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And because Rinpoche authorized me, the 8th movement, to teach more freely. And then also to authorize people to be able to teach. So if people are interested, then they should do the first part and then eventually can do the second. But there is no guarantee that because people come, that automatically coming means being authorized. No. I should see that there is a very basic but concrete understanding on the principle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that is the teacher training that is going to happen. I'm writing it as it's going to happen from the 16th to the 26th of October, and it's limited to 16 people because I think Fabio wants to have a very close supervision of those participants that take part in the teacher training. And who is the main audience that is kind of addressed to the teacher training?
No, some people, of course, if people go from zero, it's very complicated. Mm-hmm. People who have some understanding of body work, breath work, and so on. But you are asking why 8 movements? Because there are 8 different aspects of the breath. The first one is for the long inhalation and already applies open hold. The second one is for open hold and applies the directed hold. The third one is for directed hold. The fifth one is for fast exhalation. The fifth one is for fast inhalation. The sixth one is for the close hold. The seventh one for the contracted hold, and the last one for the long exhalation. So it's like is very, very, very long breath in 8 different movements.
And I can say, like, last year I actually had the pleasure to participate in the training with Fabio and in the training in the workshop, and it is a whole different experience to actually do it than hear about it. It's actually, we are having this very conceptual and intellectual conversation about Yantra Yoga, about yoga, which is better actually understood by doing it than by hearing about it. And it is, I remember when we did it, it's like you discover places in your body that you actually did not know that were affected by breathing. And this was kind of the effect of practicing yoga with Fabio. It was like the breathing and it's like you awake places in your body that you did not know were there. And this is actually done through very specific movements and ways of placing the breathing and the arms and your whole body that really helps to get to this fluid breathing. I'm just saying this as a non-expert that found the workshop really, really interesting for working on one's breath. So thank you so much, Fabio. I have given some of the links there if you're interested, and I think I would like now to open up for questions and answers from the audience. What do you think, Fabio? So if anybody would like to ask questions to Fabio, you can raise your hand and I will open up your mic. Or if you're shy to ask on the camera, you can also put them on the chat.
Silence.
Silence. Well, that's a pity. A great opportunity to ask questions to the expert. Are there many yoga practitioners among the audience?
Otherwise, I start making some provocation, eh?
Elizabeth says she's a beginner. Mm-hmm.
But that was not a question.
No. So anybody would like to ask questions to Fabio? Okay.
Could you explain further on Yantra? Yantra means 5 groups, yes, with 5 yantra each, 75 altogether, because there are 2 variations every yantra. Yantra yoga, because yantra means movement, a mechanism. That is translation that is applied in the, no, there is the Shiri yantra, this mandala with all, but it's not this. But means movement, a mechanism, because the practice is based on movement. And this is a translation of the Tibetan term trulkhor. In fact, the title is Trulkhor Nidakajor, the yantra of the union of sun and moon. The text of Erochana.
So, Carol, how would flute playing affect your breathing? Would this professional training interfere with Yantra Yoga?
No, I don't think. Well, the only thing that I've seen that can interfere a little bit with the practice of Yantra if some people are trained to do Ujjayi pranayama all the time. Because in Yantra, there is 2 kinds of breathings, the smooth breathing and the rough breathing. And then there is another one specifically for the rhythmic breathing. The smooth breathing or fluid breathing is direct and long, subtle and long and direct, smooth, calm, different kind of adjective to define it. The rough breathing is indirect, so it's controlled in the glottis and quick. That is called rough. The other one is fluid or smooth and rough. And then in the rhythmic breathing, because in the rhythmic breathing, if we do it really, we go up and up and up, inhaling for longer time. There is the way of controlling, making indirect the inhalation in order to being able to shape it and control it more in the first part of the breath. In the second part, at the top, before starting to hold, then should open it again and enter in this way. So this is the kind of breathing, but 90% of the time is the fluid breathing, direct and long and smooth. And there was a long one.
Go ahead, Fabio.
No, I saw appearing a question, long one, but I couldn't read it.
Okay. So how can you explain the difference between the 2 workshops you offer in August? I can maybe answer that. They are not in August, so there is one in August, 5 days in August, which is for open to everybody, for those who just want to do the workshop, but definitely for those who want to participate in the teacher training that will take place in October. So there's one workshop, 5 days in August, open to everyone, either if you want to do the teacher training or not. And then there is the teacher training in October, 10 days from the 16th to the 26th of October. And in order to participate in the teacher training, you need to have done the workshop in August or have participated in any other workshops with Fabio.
I think Sabandi was asking when to do the practice of Yantra. It's true. I saw appearing something.
Yeah. How many times in a day you'd suggest us to practice the Yantra Yoga move set, also the breathing practice?
Well, it's difficult to answer because it depends how much of Yantra you know and how much you want to practice. If it's only the 8 movements, they probably take, if you do everything of the course, probably take 15 minutes. Because the 8 movements, generally they are one movement we do 3 times. And so is a kind of set. There is also, in case, the short version that can be done shorter if somebody doesn't have time but want to have a kind of quick fix thing. But then this probably, yes, also depends how much time, if you want to do the rhythmic breathing, can go from 10 to 20 minutes, for example. The point with Yantra, especially if somebody is not trained, is that in the morning might be not so easy to apply. In the evening, in reality, the body has already been moving all day, is a kind of easier to do. But the other thing, if we do, because also Yantra Yoga is energetic. The movement is like a dance, but an energetic dance. The movement should be present. There should be some kind of alertness, intent in the movement of the body, because it's not like some that you go in a pose and then you relax into the pose. You have to relax through the breathing in the movement, because relaxation is not only laying down or staying and letting go. For example, in martial arts, they say that you achieve the best performance, the best strength when you are in tune, because really being relaxed means being in tune, really. So that is the purpose of Yantra, to get to this kind of presence and awareness without tension, but with strength, because that strength in the sense of vitality is our nature, no? And so this being present and aware in this dimension like this, not just only laying down and then we are relaxed. So, and the breath, if you have, I always say, use the breathing to move the body, seriously. After you practice Yantra for some time, you understand what I mean when I say that. Move the body with the breathing. Because you move the body with the breathing, and first of all, you have to be present in what you're doing, otherwise you can't. So it's not so easy to get hurt, because let's face it, there is quite a few people that do in yoga, sometimes they get hurt. But if there is this presence and awareness, and we are in our body, no? We have this perception, and then we move. The breath is making the muscle more smooth, and then we can move more graciously, and then the breath is aligning the body by itself. The mind is more centered and relaxed, and then the practice is something very useful. So sometimes if it's in the evening, the body has already been moving, might be easier. But with some training, or if somebody wants just in the morning, because that's when you do it, of course, you can also in the morning. I'm talking about being a little more easy, not so easy. And the other things, as for any practice of yoga, you don't go to a wedding, you eat 12 meals and then decide to practice. It's not a very good idea. Not a very good idea. I had a friend, a totally different story, that he was in retreat in India, in Arakan. And he was there for some time and didn't have anything to eat. So finally he heard a celebration of a wedding. He went up there and he ate very happily everything there was. And then he felt so sick, very, very sick. That is kind of anecdote.
Okay, Fabio. And the last question we have is how Yantra Yoga can liberate from the suffering of samsara? Is it also connected with the practice of shamatha and vipassana meditation?
Well, as I said, Yantra Yoga is a kind of, especially this teaching of Vairochana. Vairochana was a Dzogchen teacher. So the final goal of Yantra Yoga is the state of Dzogchen. And on the path, having presence and awareness is indispensable. So in this sense, but is not necessarily the final aspect of the spiritual evolution related to the teaching of Dzogchen.
I think we will give, so what advice, we will have the last question, or what advice would you give to someone who's, what advice,
is fresh now.
What advice would you give to someone who is not flexible and because of these conditions himself not to practice Yantra?
No, because in Yantra Yoga, there are the specific warm-up of Yantra Yoga are the Dzogchen. The Dzogchen have a particular way of breathing that is an exception from the rest of Yantra. It is direct, not controlled, but fast. And it's very interesting because now we cannot really go into these different aspects of the breath, what they do to the brain, to the nervous system, and this and this and that. Now they are studying, finally, all these kind of things. But Rinpoche himself, when was teaching, and then we have been doing, we also teach some kind of normal warm-ups. Some warm-ups targeted to help being able to perform that movement, not out of the box, but some preparation. Of course, we do that. Some people find it very easy. Some people maybe find it a little challenging, but if there is not a little challenge, there is no juice.
Oh, okay. And maybe final one, what is the relation between Yantra Yoga and more useful yoga? I wanted to begin doing yoga. What type of yoga would you recommend, and could it be complementary to Yantra Yoga?
More useful yoga?
No, I wanted, so what is the relation between Yantra Yoga and more useful yoga? I want to
usual.
Usual.
Yeah, well, when I was in a place I was teaching, they said, wow, this yoga looks like just came out from the cave. Well, but really, the point is not, I teach Yantra Yoga. And then I also teach now this system to help people breathe better, basically, coordinated as it is in Yantra Yoga, because I think the way it's explained in Yantra Yoga is very natural, very spontaneous way of breathing. And so I think it's very useful for anyone, absolutely. But I've been practicing Hatha Yoga in the tradition of, as I already said, of Shivananda, of Mongir, and I loved it. I mean, I was in Bangalore with my teacher. I was practicing 5-8 hours a day, half the time fasting, and my body changed, really, literally changed. And then I met Rinpoche, I met the Yantra Yoga, and well, I found Yantra Yoga exceptional. But I'm not trying to convince people or something like, you know, you have to do Yantra Yoga, the other yoga. No, I'm not interested in that at all. Everybody can find what is good for her or his practice, and what you find interest with, what is satisfying you, because when we practice, there should be also, you know, some connection of pleasure or satisfaction with what we do. And we are all different. We might have different tendency and different way of finding what is working for us. What is important that is concrete and is bringing some benefit. What it is relative. I teach Yantra Yoga, so if you come, I teach you Yantra Yoga.
I think Etienne was also asking whether it's also complementary. You can practice Yantra Yoga and also another kind of more useful yoga, but both can be
you can do Yantra Yoga in the afternoon, that is easier, and Ashtanga Yoga in the morning, and then you can do Anusara Yoga, I don't know when. If you eat, I don't know when you can do it. And then you can do hot yoga when it's cold. I don't know. You decide. I mean, there is no limitation. The point is that you need time. You need time to do things. And as my yoga teacher, when I was in India, told me, he said, be careful not to become crazy for everything and master of nothing.
Sure. Good, Fabio. I think we are 5 minutes past the hour, and I think people probably have other engagements. So I really wanted to thank you for granting us this hour of your time and giving such generous and clear explanations about Yantra Yoga. Thank you, everyone that joined, and hopefully these have kind of ignited your interest. Want to learn more about it, and so there would be ample opportunities to learn more about it. I also wanted to give the reference of a book written by Fabio, Breathe As You Are, right, Fabio?
Yeah, this is about this. Now it's called different, it doesn't matter, yes. But there is also the book, the open book of Yantra Yoga, and there is the art of Yantra Yoga, and here there is all the thing that we'll be doing during the course.
Okay, so I put both of them there, and also share the links to the workshops, and we will be sending you more information. So thank you so much, Fabio. Continue to enjoy.
Oh, thank you everyone.
And thank you everyone. Put the gallery view. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice evening.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yes, we'll see you soon.
Oh, just one thing. I'm not the only teacher of Yantra Yoga. Eh? There are many that teach around, so you can find them.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Good. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. We will be sending the recordings as well.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Gracias.
De nada.
Gracias.
Ciao.
Nada.
Bye bye.
No, por
Ciao.
favor, como dicen en la cantina, no, por favor. Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye, Fabio.
Bye bye.
Bye. Okay.